Ayesha had learned to live quietly in the corners of her own home. Her footsteps were soft, her presence softer, as if she were afraid to disturb the world around her. She moved like someone who had spent her entire life trying not to be a burden. And maybe that was true, because every time her mother looked at her, she sighed the same sentence Ayesha had heard since childhood. Maybe if you were more like your sister. Tonight, the house glowed with excitement. Fairy lights wrapped around the curtains. The smell of biryani filled the living room, and soft music played from Samra's phone. Their mother had outdone herself, fresh flowers in a vase, a new tablecloth, even the expensive plates that were only brought out when someone important visited. But today they weren't celebrating a visitor. They were celebrating Samra, Samra the golden child, the pride of the family. She had just landed a well-paying job at Meriton Corporate, and their mother behaved as if she had won a Nobel Prize. Guests had come and gone all afternoon, offering congratulations that Samra happily soaked in, like warm sunlight. Ayesha stayed in the background, serving drinks, collecting plates, and forcing a smile each time someone ignored her existence. "Look at her, Ayesha," her mother whispered as she arranged the last dish on the table. "So confident, so successful. If only you had a bit of her focused, her sparked, her ambition." She sighed dramatically. "You're always hiding in your room with those silly notebooks that won't feed you." Ayesha swallowed the sting in her throat. "I'm trying, Ammy," she said softly. "Trying." Her mother repeated with a scoff, "Isn't achieving." The words settled over Ayesha like dust, familiar, unwelcome, but impossible to brush away. When dinner began, Ayesha quietly placed plates in front of her mother and sister. Samra didn't look up. She was too busy talking about her office, her supervisor, the fancy glass building she would now walk into every morning. Her mother listened with glowing eyes, interrupting only to shower her with praise. Ayesha sat at the edge of the table, barely touching her food. She wasn't jealous. At least she told herself she wasn't. But something inside her tightened every time her mother laughed proudly at Samra's stories. Then suddenly the television beeped, a red banner flashed, breaking news. "Fraud investigation begins at Meriton Corporate." Ayesha froze. Samra's spoon clattered onto her plate. Their mother's smile vanished instantly. Footage showed police walking through the same glass building Samra had been bragging about moments earlier. Employees covering their faces, stacks of fake documents, accusations of money laundering, everything happened so fast that the room seemed to shrink. Samra stood abruptly. "Turn it off." But their mother held the remote tightly, her hands shaking. The celebration died in seconds. The fairy lights continued glowing, but the happiness they had been meant to decorate dissolved completely. And in that moment, Ayesha felt something unfamiliar stir inside her. Not joy, not satisfaction, but the first quiet crack in the world that had always told her she wasn't enough. The news spread faster than wildfire. By morning, Meriton Corporate was the only topic on every channel, every newspaper, every whisper in the neighborhood. Samra stayed locked in her room, refusing breakfast, refusing conversation. Their mother walked around the house like a ghost, wringing her hands and mumbling prayers under her breath. Ayesha watched it all quietly. She wasn't happy about what happened, no sister would be, but she couldn't deny the strange shift in the air. The pedestal Samra had stood on all her life was beginning to shake. By noon, neighbors began knocking. "Auntie, is it true? Samra worked at that place, didn't she? Oh God, such shame, may Allah make it easy." Their mother pretended not to hear the whispers, but Ayesha noticed the way she flinched at every comment. Her shoulders, once squared with pride, now sagged under the weight of judgment. When the last visitor left, she snapped. "Ayesha," she shouted from the living room. Ayesha rushed in. "Yes, Ammy." Her mother's eyes were red and swollen from crying or anger. Ayesha couldn't tell. "This is happening because you never succeeded," she burst out. "If people respected you, they wouldn't dare talk like this." Ayesha blinked, stunned. "How is this my fault? Because you didn't achieve anything." Her mother cried. "Look at your sister's condition. If we had 2 successful daughters, people wouldn't insult us." Ayesha's heart stung. "I'm trying my best, I always have." Her mother waved her hand dismissively. "Your best is nothing. You should have pushed harder, studied better. been more confident, been more like. She stopped herself, but the sentence didn't need finishing. Ayesha had heard it 1,000 times. Samra suddenly appeared in the doorway. She looked pale, eyes swollen, hair messy. "Ammi, I didn't do anything wrong," she whispered weakly. Her mother immediately rushed to her, cupping her face with trembling hands. No, my child, you are innocent. You will be fine. This is just a misunderstanding." Ayesha stood there invisible. Later that evening, when their mother stepped out to speak with a relative, Samra entered the kitchen where Ayesha was washing dishes. "You know," Samra began, leaning against the counter, "this wouldn't be such a big deal if you had a better life." Ayesha froze. "What do you mean?" Samra crossed her arms. "If you had a good job, good reputation, people would focus on you, not me. But since you're well, everyone is staring at me instead." Ayesha felt the familiar sting but stayed quiet. Samra walked closer, voice dropping. "I need you to take responsibility for one thing." Ayesha turned slowly. "For what?" "For the document I submitted," Samra said coldly. "Just say you helped me fill it, they'll believe it. You're the quiet one, they'll think you made an innocent mistake." Ayesha stared at her in disbelief. "You want me to lie for you?" Samra rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic. You owe me. I've always been the one making Mom proud. You can at least do this." Something inside Ayesha broke, softly but irreversibly. "No," she whispered. Samra's expression twisted in shock. "What?" Ayesha looked at her sister, truly looked at her, and for the first time she didn't feel small. "I said no." The pedestal shattered completely. Samra stepped back, speechless. Ayesha turned away, breathing heavily, not from fear, but from the strength she had never used until now. For the first time in her life, Ayesha felt the beginning of her own voice, and it tasted like freedom. The house grew colder in the days that followed. Not in temperature, but in spirit. Even sunlight seemed hesitant to enter through the windows, as if the walls themselves carried shame. Samra barely left her room, and their mother walked around like someone carrying a wound that refused to heal. Ayesha, however, felt something new growing inside her, a quiet resolve. It didn't happen all at once. It showed up in small decisions, tiny steps, steps no one noticed, but ones that slowly began shaping her future. At night, when the house was silent and her mother cried in her bedroom, Ayesha sat at her desk with her old notebook, the one her mother always called a childish hobby. She opened video tutorials, joined online business groups, and studied everything she could about selling handmade products. She had always created things, journals, planners, bookmarks, but she'd never believed they were worth anything. Now, she wanted to believe. Every evening she worked in silence, her fingers stained with ink and glue, her tired eyes shining with a quiet determination. She wasn't building a business, she was rebuilding herself. Meanwhile, the situation for Samra worsened. Authorities continued digging into the fraud case, and Meriton Corporate suspended most employees, including Samra. She was not allowed to talk to anyone outside the family. Their mother spent hours trying to contact relatives who had suddenly become busy. Ayesha overheard everything. "Auntie says we should stay quiet right now, people are talking too much. I told her Samra didn't do anything, but nobody believes me. They say we raised our daughters wrong, ya Allah. What will I do?" Each comment pierced Ayesha, but unlike before, she didn't collapse under the weight. She listened, took deep breaths, and returned to her work. One evening, when a fierce argument broke out between neighbors outside their gate about the scandal, Ayesha found Samra crying silently on the staircase. "I didn't know it would get so bad," Samra whispered. "I didn't think Mom would get dragged into it." Ayesha sat down beside her, but didn't touch her. "You made your choice," she said softly. Samra wiped her tears aggressively. "I was scared." Ayesha nodded. "I know, but fear doesn't justify hurting others." Samra looked at her with a mixture of guilt and envy, as if she didn't recognize the sister sitting beside her, the sister who was no longer afraid to speak. In the following weeks, Ayesha's small business page grew. People loved her handmade journals, they praised her creativity. Orders trickled in at first, then became steady. She worked late nights packaging notebooks, writing thank you notes, and designing new covers. One morning, she checked her email and froze. A message from a local entrepreneurship program blinked on the screen. Congratulations. Your proposal has been selected for funding. Please attend the orientation next week. Her heart raced. Her hands trembled. Ayesha pressed her palm to her mouth to stifle a sob, not out of sadness but disbelief. She had done this, she the girl who had lived in the shadows. For the rest of the day, Ayesha moved around the house with a quiet glow in her chest. She didn't tell her mother or Samra. Not yet. She needed time to let the reality settle into her bones. That night, while her mother continued praying for Samra's fate, and Samra stared blankly at her phone, Ayesha worked on her business plan, stronger, clearer, braver than before. The ashes of her old life still surrounded her, but she no longer felt buried under them. She was rising. Slowly, silently, but undeniably. Ayesha never imagined success would feel so quiet. There were no fireworks, no applause, no crowd cheering her name. Instead, her victories arrived in gentle ways. In the warm emails from customers who adored her journals, in the approving nods from mentors in the entrepreneurship program, in the peaceful satisfaction she felt each night as she packed orders with her own hands. Her life, once defined by silence, was now shaped by purposeful action. Meanwhile, the house remained wrapped in a tense fog. Samra grew thinner, shadows forming under her eyes as she awaited updates from her suspended job. Their mother grew more anxious with each passing day. Calls from relatives were short and awkward, neighbors avoided eye contact, and every knock on the door made her flinch. One evening, after a long day of workshops, Ayesha returned home late. The living room lights were dim. Samra sat hunched on the sofa, hugging a pillow. Their mother stared blankly at the turned-off television. Ayesha set her bag down quietly. Her mother looked up. Ayesha sit. The tone was unfamiliar, drained, defeated. Ayesha slowly lowered herself into the seat across from them. Their mother exhaled shakily. The company, they might close. Your sister, she may not get her job back. People are still talking, and relatives, they have stopped answering. I don't know what to do anymore. For the first time, Ayesha felt no sting, no hurt, no bitterness. Instead, she felt strangely steady. Amy, she said gently, you don't need to worry about everything alone. Her mother blinked, confused. What do you mean? Ayesha took a slow breath. I can help. Samra looked up sharply. Their mother leaned forward. You, she asked, not out of insult this time, but disbelief. Help how, Beta? Ayesha reached into her bag and placed a folder on the table. Inside were her business documents, funding papers, partnership contracts, and purchase orders. Her mother gingerly opened the folder. What is this, my business? Ayesha said softly. I've been working on it for months. I got a grant and a mentor, and I'm partnered with a bookstore now. I'm earning enough, more than enough. Samra's mouth fell open. You did all this, Ayesha nodded. Her mother stared at the papers, stunned. The same woman who once mocked Ayesha's notebooks was now holding the proof that those childish hobbies were changing their lives. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then her mother's eyes filled with tears, not of pride, not yet, but of realization. Ayesha, she whispered, I never saw you, I never understood. Ayesha stopped her gently. It's okay, Amy, I'm not angry anymore. Her voice didn't shake. Her heart didn't tremble. Samra looked away, shame burning her cheeks. I'm sorry. She muttered, for everything, for blaming you, for making you feel small. Ayesha offered a sad, soft smile. I forgive you, but I won't let anyone treat me like that again. Not even family. Her mother wiped her tears quickly. You've changed, she whispered. Ayesha stood, the quiet strength around her unmistakable. No, Amy, she replied calmly. I've just stopped hiding. And in that moment, the sweetest revenge unfolded not through anger, not through punishment, but through truth. Ayesha had become the very thing they said she never could be. Her silence had transformed into strength. Her pain had shaped her purpose. Her growth was her victory, and her peace was her final, gentle revenge.